Hello, my friend. Welcome to Dreamy Nights. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we'll drift together into a gentle world, one where the sea hums softly beneath the rain and the glow of a distant lighthouse keeps watch through the mist. So find your calm breathe in the quiet and let each sound of rain carry away the noise of the day. When you're ready, our story begins. Far out along the grey horizon, where the ocean folds softly into itself, there lies a small island, wrapped in a silvery mist. Its shoreline is a curve of smooth stones, worn round by centuries of tide and time. On the island's highest bluff stands the lighthouse, tall, white, and patient, its beam sweeping across the sea like a slow heartbeat in the dark. The air tonight carries the scent of salt and rain. The first drops have begun to fall small and deliberate, tapping lightly against the glass panes of the lantern room. The rhythm is steady, not hurried, not loud. Just the soft percussion of clouds meeting earth sky, meeting sea. Each droplet finds its way down the windows, gathering into slow rivers that shimmer in the dim light. Inside, the air is warm. The great brass lamp hums gently, its flame cradled within thick glass. Wooden walls creak with the mild expansion of the night air, while the floorboards remember the footfalls of every evening before. In the quiet, there's a melody of simple sounds, a kettle beginning to whisper on the stove, the faint whistle of wind around the tower, and the heartbeat-like pulse of waves below. Rowan moves through it all with unhurried grace. His beard is soft and silvered, his sweater thick and worn from years of tending the light. He takes each movement as though part of a slow ritual, lighting the wick, checking the fuel, folding a linen cloth beside the door. His hands, steady as the rhythm of the tide, seem to understand time differently here. He pauses for a moment beside the narrow window. Outside, the sea is a dusky blue, the rain now gathering strength. The beam of the lighthouse cuts through it, a golden thread, weaving through layers of mist. Rowan watches it turn slow and dependable, the same as it has every night since he first arrived. There's comfort in that motion, a quiet promise that nothing truly ends it, only circles back, like the light itself. On the small wooden table near the wall, steam curls up from a chipped mug. The scent of tea, black, faintly smoky, mingles with the salt air. A book lies open beside it, its pages weighted by a smooth shell. The words are familiar. He's read them many times before. But tonight, he only gazes at them absently, letting their presence be enough. The sound of rain begins to deepen its rhythm, finding the perfect pace to match the turning of the light. Tap, tap, tap. It's as if the sky is whispering to the sea, and the sea hums back in reply. Rowan closes his eyes for a breath, listening. In that stillness, He feels something unspoken, yet certain the sense that this night, like all nights here, belongs entirely to peace. He moves to the staircase that curls down from the lantern room, his hand gliding along the smooth railing. The wood is cool beneath his fingers, faintly damp with salt from the air. As he descends, the rain becomes louder, closer, wrapping the tower in a cocoon of sound. Down below, the keeper's quarters glow dimly with the warm light of an oil lamp. The golden hue trembles gently, reflected in glass bottles and polished copper. Rowan sets the kettle aside and pours the tea slowly. The cup warms his palms. He takes a sip, eyes half closed, listening to the steady murmur of rain against stone. Beyond the small window, the world is a watercolor of silver and blue sky and sea blending until neither can be told apart. He watches as the rain falls more thickly and the lighthouse beam glides across the water once again. In the quiet, Rowan murmurs softly, almost to himself. The rain knows its way home. The words hang for a moment, caught in the golden air. Perhaps they're meant for the sea, or perhaps for no one at all. He leans back in his chair, folds his hands, and lets the calm of the island settle around him like a blanket. Above the beam continues its endless, slow turning. Outside, the rain keeps its steady rhythm, and within, the keeper drifts into silence, wrapped in the timeless music of the sea. The night deepens slowly, as though it has nowhere else to be. The rain continues its patient rhythm, a constant companion, whispering against the tower walls. Each droplet seems to carry a small hush, a tender message of calm that spreads through the air like warmth from a hidden ember. Rowan sits beside the small window in his quarters, the soft lamplight laying golden pools across the table. The cup beside him has grown cool, its faint scent of tea now mingled with that of linen brass and rain-damp wood. He turns the cup absently between his hands, feeling the smoothness of the porcelain, the quiet weight of the moment. From somewhere above, the slow rotation of the lighthouse beam hums like a lullaby. Every few seconds, a faint pulse of light drifts through the misted window, the same beam that has kept sailors safe for decades. Rowan watches the light pass over and over, each time a little softer, like the gentle rhythm of breathing. He stands, stretching a little, and crosses the small room. His steps creak across the planks, the sound blending with the whisper of rain. The oil lamp flickers slightly as he adjusts its wick, making the shadows on the walls sway like gentle waves. There's a small shelf lined with objects, smooth driftwood pieces of sea glass, an old compass whose face has faded to ivory. Each item carries a quiet story collected not for their worth, but for their stillness, for the way they remind him that beauty can live in the simplest things. Rowan takes down a small tin from the shelf and opens it. Inside is dried chamomile, pale and delicate. He spoons a little into a cup, pours hot water from the kettle, and watches the petals drift and swirl before settling. The scent rises softly, mingling with the faint mineral tang of the rain outside. Steam curls upward, ghost-like, catching the lamplight in thin ribbons before vanishing into the night. The keeper moves toward the door that leads to the outer balcony. As he opens it, the sound of the rain blooms into fullness, gentle yet immense, like a living thing breathing in harmony with the sea. Cool air brushes his face. The mist clings to his sweater, damp and salty. The light above swings through the fog, scattering golden fragments across the darkness. From this vantage, Rowan can see the faint outline of the shoreline below smooth stones glistening with rain, the foamy edge of waves tracing patterns that disappear and return again and again. It is the ocean's handwriting, eternal and calm. He stands there for a long while, simply breathing in the rhythm of the island. He takes a slow sip of his tea warmth spreading through his hands. A gull calls once in the distance, its voice softened by the rain. The sound fades into the wind, leaving only the hush of water and the deep pulse of the sea. The world feels weightless, suspended between waking and dream. After some time, Rowan closes the door gently and returns inside. The walls welcome him with their quiet creaks and familiar scent. He wipes a faint trace of rain from his sleeve and sets his cup down. The flame in the lamp sways, steadying again, its glow wrapping the room in golden calm. On the table rests his old journal bound in worn leather, its pages filled with neat flowing lines of handwriting. He opens it to a blank page. The pen hesitates in his fingers before he begins to write, his movements slow and deliberate. The sound of the nib against paper joins the orchestra of rain, a soft counterpoint in the stillness. He writes about the evening, the scent of the rain, the light across the water, the feeling of gratitude that comes with the turning of each night. There is no hurry in his words, no need for endings or conclusions. Just quiet observation, one line at a time, until the page is filled with calm. When he sets the pen down, Rowan leans back and listens once more to the rain. The lighthouse beam glides past the window, steady and kind. The sea, unseen in the dark, whispers against the stones below a secret language of ebb and return. He closes the journal gently, the sound of the cover meeting the table like a sachi. His eyes linger on the lamplight, on the slow movement of shadows along the wall, and for a moment he feels the weight of time fall away entirely. Outside, the rain continues to fall, patient, endless, soft as sleep. By the time the clock strikes 9, the island has surrendered completely to the rain. The sound has deepened into a gentle, endless murmur, steady enough to quiet thought, soft enough to cradle the world in peace. The air has cooled, carrying the faint metallic scent of wet stone and the sweetness of moss from the cliffs below. Rowan stands by the narrow window once more, his reflection faint in the glass. The lantern room above glows faintly. Through the floorboards, its beam circling through the mist like a patient heartbeat. With each pass, a sliver of light glides over his face, catching the calm in his eyes before fading again into shadow. He rests his palm against the cold pane, feeling the rhythm of the rain through it. Each drop lands with a quiet insistence, tap, 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 like a lullaby being written in water. Beyond the glass, the sea is invisible now, hidden beneath the thickness of night and storm. Yet Rowan knows its shape, its sound, its patient breathing. He doesn't need to see it to understand it's there, alive and listening. A low, gentle creak stirs from the tower as the wind shifts direction. Rowan moves to the hearth and adds a small piece of driftwood to the fire. The flame accepts it, softly flaring for a heartbeat before settling into a steady amber glow. The warmth seeps outward, curling through the air like a sigh. The scent of the burning wood mingles with the faint aroma of tea and salt, the scent of home, of belonging. He sits once again in his chair, the same one that has molded over the years to the shape of his rest. The cushions are worn and familiar, the fabric brushed smooth by time. Beside him, a small cat named Bristle Grey as mist, with fur as soft as ash, curls up quietly, purring like a distant engine beneath the rain. Rowan strokes her gently, feeling the warmth of life through the softness of fur. The rain has found a rhythm now that seems almost deliberate, like a conversation between sky and sea. It drums gently against the roof, trickles through the gutters, and whispers along the window panes. The lighthouse beam turns above them, its glow catching on droplets and scattering them like tiny stars. Rowan murmurs to himself almost without sound. Every drop finds its way home again. The words are carried off by the air, blending into the hush. He closes his eyes and listens, really listens, until the pattern of the rain begins to feel like breathing. In, out, in, out. The rhythm of the world perfectly balanced. The kind of sound that untangles thought and makes room for stillness. On the desk nearby, the journal lies open to a blank page. A small ink bottle glimmers beside it, the light trembling over its dark surface. Rowan reaches for the pen again, though this time he doesn't write. Instead, he simply traces small shapes along the page. The outline of a wave, the curve of a raindrop, a single line that winds like the edge of a tide. It is not meant to be read. It is meant to be felt. Outside, the rain begins to shift in tone, a subtle change, like the difference between a whisper and a hum. The droplets come faster, though never harsh. They roll across the glass in branching patterns, reflecting the faint light of the lamp. The entire lighthouse becomes part of the sound wooden walls, resonating with a deep, slow pulse. Rowan smiles faintly. He has always believed that the tower itself listens, that the beams and stones remember every storm, every night, every echo of rain. It stands here as he does, calm, enduring content to exist within the music of the weather. He stands and moves toward the staircase once again, Bristle lifting her head to watch him go. Each step downward is soft, measured, accompanied by the muffled percussion of the rain. In the storage room below, the air is cooler, the scent of the sea stronger. The walls are lined with shelves of tools and old records, things that belong to another time. He runs a finger along a brass telescope, then over the smooth wood of a small model ship, something he built years ago, a copy of the first vessel he ever saw, guided safely past this very light. Dust lies thinly over it now, but the lines of the hull are still perfect. When he returns to the main room, the rain has softened again, its intensity fading into a steady murmur. He pours the last of his tea and sets the kettle aside, listening to the rain trace quiet patterns against the window. The night seems to breathe with him now, as if the entire island has slowed its pulse to match his own. He whispers to the silence, a faint smile in his voice. Let the rain do the talking tonight. And so it does. The sound of it fills the space completely. A delicate, endless lullaby that asks for nothing and promises rest. The lighthouse keeps its steady vigil. The fire burns low, and the keeper sits in perfect stillness, listening. Outside, the world fades gently into silver and sleep. The rain has grown softer again, as though the sky itself is beginning to drowse. The sound of it now is finer, lighter, like the brushing of silk against glass. It flows through every corner of the lighthouse, smoothing the air, washing away even the faintest edge of thought. Rowan sits close to the hearth, a wool blanket drawn loosely over his knees. The fire burns low, its glow turning the brass fittings around the room to molten gold. Each flame flickers in time with the wind, sending long, slow shadows to dance across the walls. Bristle has returned to her place near the window, curled into a grey coil, her ears twitching faintly at the rhythm of the rain. Rowan leans back in his chair and lets his gaze travel up toward the ceiling. The gentle creak of wood overhead mingles with the steady ticking of a wall clock. Time here feels fluid each minute, stretching itself thin, dissolving into the soft hush of the storm. He takes another slow breath and lets it go his thoughts, as light as drifting ash. After a while, he begins to speak, not loudly, not to anyone in particular, but to the quiet itself. His voice is low and warm, carrying the unhurried cadence of memory. There was a night once, he murmurs, much like this one. The air was thick with mist, and the sea had hidden itself under a silver veil. I was new to this post, then still learning the sound of the tower, still learning the silence between the waves. The rain seems to listen. It patters more gently against the window, as though leaning closer to hear. Rowan's eyes grow distant, focused somewhere deep in the reflection of the firelight. I remember standing by the lamp. He continues, watching its light cut through the fog. The world beyond that circle of gold was nothing but shadow. But in that small space of light, everything felt alive. The sound of the oil flame, the hum of the gears, the breathing of the sea below. I realized then that the light didn't just guide ships. It reminded the night that someone was still awake, still keeping watch. He pauses, smiling faintly at the thought. Since then, I've come to think the sea listens too. It hears the light turning the footsteps on the stairs, the tea being poured. It knows the rhythm of the keeper's life, and in its own way, it answers back. The wind sighs softly through a narrow seam in the window, a long and tender note that fades into the distance. The sound feels almost like a reply, like the sea affirming his story. Rowan chuckles quietly, shaking his head. He reaches for his mug and takes a slow sip. The warmth fills him from the inside out. He watches the rain draw tiny rivers down the window, each one a path back to the sea. The glass glows softly in the reflection of the lamp, golden streaks mingling with the cool blue of the storm beyond. He speaks again, quieter now. On nights like this, I think about how every drop that falls will return to the ocean someday. The same way every sound, every breath, every story finds its way home. Nothing is ever lost. It just changes shape. The words fade into the stillness, joining the rhythm of the storm. Bristle shifts in her sleep, a soft, contented sigh escaping her. The fire hums quietly, the flames tracing delicate movements across the hearth. Rowan leans his head back and closes his eyes. His breathing falls in with the rhythm of the rain. For a long moment, everything in the lighthouse feels perfectly synchronized. The fire, the sea, the heartbeat of the tower itself. Outside, the mist thickens. The light at the top of the tower turns in slow golden arcs, sweeping across invisible waves. Each time it passes, the rain catches it briefly, scattering small halos into the night. It looks like the sky itself is smiling. Rowan's voice drifts once more, barely more than a whisper now. Every night has a story, and every story a quiet place to rest. The fire crackles once more, low and steady. The rain continues its lullaby. And the keeper, wrapped in the warmth of memory, surrounded by the hum of the sea, begins to drift not into sleep, but into something even gentler stillness. The night has deepened into velvet soft and thick, as though the world has been wrapped in quiet. The rain has slowed to a faint drizzle, the kind that hangs in the air more than it falls, each droplet suspended like a sigh. Rowan rises from his chair, feeling the warmth of the fire fading into the cool breath of the room. He adds one last piece of driftwood to the hearth, watching the flame catch and bloom. The light spills across the floorboards, tracing soft paths of gold that seem to wander toward the window. He moves toward the stairway that winds gently upward to the lantern room. Each step creaks in rhythm, the same gentle cadence that has carried him up and down these stairs countless nights before. His hand trails along the railing, feeling the smoothness worn by time and touch. When he reaches the top, the world opens again. The lantern room glows with a living warmth, the great lens turning slowly, scattering its golden heartbeat through the rain. The walls hum softly with the breath of the machinery, a deep, reassuring sound that fills the space with life. Rowan takes a moment to look out through the wide glass windows. The sea is a dark expanse below, only hinted at by the reflection of the light and the faint shimmer of rain. Each sweep of the beam reveals a little of the world, the suggestion of a wave crest, the outline of the cliffs, the smooth horizon stretching into infinity. He opens one of the small vents near the floor, letting in a wisp of damp, salty air. The smell of the ocean rises cool, clean, endless. He breathes it in deeply, the scent grounding him in this place, in this quiet life he has come to love so completely. On the table nearby lies a small cloth he keeps for polishing the brass. The metal gleams under the lantern, glow each curve, catching the light in soft arcs. Rowan wipes the surface gently, his movements unhurried. The faint sound of fabric against brass blends with the rain's rhythm, creating a harmony so natural it feels like part of the sea itself. He pauses to look up at the great lens turning ever so slowly, a delicate, perfect dance of glass and light. He has always thought of it as a kind of heart. It beats, it shines, it endures. It does not rush. It simply continues night after night, a steady promise to those who wander. Outside, the mist thickens, swirling softly around the tower. The beam cuts through it like a painter's brushstroke, turning the air to gold for a fleeting instant before the darkness folds back again. Rowan stands still, watching the light move his thoughts, gentle and wordless. He remembers the words of his predecessor, an old keeper named Hale, who once told him, "The sea never stops listening. As long as this light turns, it remembers you." Rowan smiles faintly. Perhaps that's true. Perhaps somewhere in the deep, the sea holds a memory of every light that ever burned above it, every voice that ever spoke to it through the wind. He likes the thought that his quiet existence, though small, has become part of something vast and enduring. The rain taps lightly against the glass, tracing sin paths that glimmer in the light. He runs a finger along one of them, watching as it merges with another and slides slowly downward. The rhythm feels timeless, an echo of every storm and every calm that has ever touched this tower. For a while, he says nothing. There's no need to. The night itself has taken over the conversation. The whisper of the wind, the breathing of the flame, the distant heartbeat of the tide. Everything is enough. Rowan adjusts the lamp's flame just slightly, ensuring its glow remains steady. The room responds with a soft hum, the sound of balance restored. He stands there a little longer, surrounded by light and shadow, and lets his mind drift with the mist. Below, the fire has dimmed to embers. Bristle is asleep, curled like a grey comma in her favorite corner. The walls hold the warmth of the day's light. The whole lighthouse feels alive, yet half dreaming its own gentle consciousness, wrapped in rain and rhythm. Rowan whispers, barely audible, "Sleep well, old tower. You've done your part." The light continues its slow, endless turn. The rain softens further, becoming nothing more than a delicate whisper. And as Rowan descends once more into the hush of his quarters, the world seems to fold into itself, seamless, still, and whole. He blows out the lamp, the flame vanishing with a sigh. Darkness settles kind and complete. Only the sound of rain remains, the perfect music for the quietest of dreams. The lighthouse has fallen into a deep, meditative quiet. Only the faintest hum of the turning lens continues above that slow, faithful rhythm, keeping time with the distant sea. The rain has softened to a silver mist, more felt than heard, brushing lightly against the glass, as though the night itself were breathing. Rowan stirs softly, awakened not by sound, but by stillness. The kind of quiet that feels alive, rich with presence. The air is cool, touched by the dampness of the rain and scented with salt and wood smoke. The fire has burned low to a bed of glowing embers, their light pulsing faintly like the heartbeat of the room. He sits up slowly, pulling the wool blanket closer around his shoulders. The small clock on the mantel ticks with patient certainty, one beat then another, reminding him that time, even when forgotten, still flows gently onward. He smiles to himself and listens, finding comfort in its persistence. In the dim glow, Bristle stirs as well, stretching her small body before curling back into her place. Rowan reaches down and strokes her head, his touch light as a whisper. The soft purr that follows blends seamlessly with the hush of the rain, a sound too quiet to disturb, too steady to ignore. He stands and crosses the room to the small wooden shelf near the window. There, among bottles of sand and bits of coral, sits a music box. Simple brass, its surface dulled with age. He winds it gently, the mechanism ticking faintly before releasing a tune so delicate it seems to drift rather than play. The melody floats through the air like mist, soft and unhurried. Each note folds into the sound of the rain, weaving together into something eternal, a lullaby older than the tower itself. Rowan closes his eyes and lets it fill the room. The world beyond the glass has vanished now. The fog has swallowed the sea, the horizon, even the faint reflection of the moon. There is only this small circle of warmth in the middle of the night. He returns to his chair, the blanket still around his shoulders. The chair sighs softly beneath his weightwood, bending with familiar ease. He sets the mug from earlier beside him, the faint scent of tea still clinging to it, sweet, earthy, and comforting. As the melody continues, Rowan's thoughts drift like small boats on a still tide. He remembers days when the tower was busier, when letters arrived by ferry, when voices echoed in these rooms. The faces are distant now, softened by time, but their laughter lingers in the air like the echo of light across the sea. He does not miss them in sadness, only in gentleness, the way one misses a warm day after winter. The rain changes its rhythm once again, now softer, now slower, each drop landing with care. It gathers in the small gutter above the window, falling occasionally in tiny silver chains down the glass. The sound feels like breathing. The whole tower seems to exhale as though sharing the night's deep calm. Rowan leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The blanket slips from his shoulders, pooling at his feet. The warmth of the fire glows faintly against his hands. He watches a single ember crumble, releasing a wisp of smoke that curls upward and disappears into the dark. He whispers to himself, voice barely audible, "There's peace in what remains." The music box winds down slowly, each note fading into the next until it becomes silence once more. The final tone hangs for a long breath, then dissolves into the sound of the sea. The rain, the waves, the hum of the lantern. All these quiet forces blend into one another, erasing the boundaries between air and water, time and rest. Rowan closes his eyes again. For a moment, he feels the pulse of the lighthouse beneath him, the creak of its beams, the steady motion of the gears above the soft expansion and settling of the wood as it breathes in rhythm with the sea. He thinks not in words, but in feeling that perhaps the lighthouse dreams too, of storms long past, of calm mornings yet to come. He likes the thought. It feels right, like something the sea might say, if it could speak. The keeper exhales slowly. The cat sighs in her sleep. The rain falls softer still. Time seems to stop, not broken, just paused, as the island drifts deeper into the still hours before dawn. Outside, the night begins its gentle turning, the long, slow breath before dawn. The rain has nearly ceased, leaving only the faint shimmer of droplets clinging to the windows. The air feels freshly washed, tender and new, as though the whole world has been quietly mended during sleep. Rowan stirs from his chair, eyes heavy but calm. The blanket slips down his arm as he rises, his movements unhurried, his thoughts still half in the dream. The embers in the hearth glow faintly, the last traces of warmth soft as candlelight. In the silence that follows, he can hear the delicate patter of water slipping from the eaves, the small sighs of the lighthouse as it settles into stillness. He crosses to the window, resting one hand on the cool frame. The fog has lifted slightly, revealing faint outlines of the sea below, pale gray, endless serene. The sky above is still dim, the horizon blurring between night and the faintest suggestion of morning. There is no rush here. The light will come when it's ready. Rowan opens the window just enough to let the damp air drift in. It carries the smell of the ocean, clean and metallic, touched by the sweetness of wet grass. The coolness brushes his face like a gentle hand. He closes his eyes, breathing deeply, feeling the quiet fill him. Down by the shoreline, he can hear the slow, deliberate sound of waves returning. The sea moves differently now, not restless, not loud, just content. It laps at the stones with a soft rhythm, as though whispering gratitude to the rain. Rowan listens, smiling faintly. Behind him, Bristle wakes and stretches her fur puffed slightly from the cool air. She hops down from the chair, landing without sound, and rubs against his leg before curling again on the small rug by the hearth. Rowan kneels beside her for a moment, brushing his fingers through her fur. "Nearly morning, little one," he murmurs. The sea is gone quiet again. The cat's purr answers softly, a vibration that feels almost like speech. He stands and moves toward the small shelf where his journal rests. The leather cover feels smooth beneath his fingertips, faintly cool. He opens it to a fresh page, dipping the pen in ink. For a long moment, he doesn't write. He only listens to the faint ticking of the clock, the hush of the mist, the slow, eternal rhythm of water on stone. Then he begins each word, deliberate and gentle. The rain has gone home to the sea again. The tower stands patient, content to rest. All things find their rhythm here, the waves, the light, even the silence. Perhaps that is what peace truly is. Not the absence of sound, but its perfect balance. He sets down the pen and reads the words quietly, letting them settle like dust in sunlight. Then he closes the book, ties its ribbon, and places it back on the shelf. His reflection in the glass beside it seems to merge with the soft dawn beyond a ghost of light meeting its source. The first true hint of morning begins to show itself, faint gold seeping into the edges of the mist. It touches the sea like a promise. The lighthouse's beam, now dimmer against the growing light, slows its steady spin. Soon the great lamp will be extinguished until evening returns. Rowan watches it, his eyes soft with reverence, as if saying farewell to an old friend who will return after rest. He climbs the spiral staircase one final time before daybreak. The air grows cooler as he ascends, the smell of metal and sea stronger near the top. The lens still turns slower now, light glancing through its curved glass like liquid fire. He stands beside it and looks out across the horizon. The fog begins to break. Strands of pale pink thread through the clouds, and the sea responds its surface, trembling with light. The rain has left small ripples where droplets fall from the railing above, concentric circles, spreading and fading into the tide. The moment feels infinite, as though the world is caught between two heartbeats. Rowan whispers, not to anyone, but to the dawn itself. Thank you for another quiet night. The light swells gently, reaching across the water, touching the stones, the tower, his face. It feels like an answer. The storm has passed. The sea has forgiven. The world has begun again. He watches until the sky brightens fully, until the rain's memory has turned to mist and the beam fades into daylight. Then, with slow hands, he turns the lever and extinguishes the light. The glass glows faintly for a few seconds longer, then rests. Silence. He descends once more, every step echoing like a soft farewell to the night. Bristle lifts her head as he returns, her eyes bright in the gentle morning. Rowan pours the last of the warm water into his cup, sits down, and looks out the window one final time. Outside, the sea is calm, silver blue, endless. The horizon is open and kind. The rain has left everything shining. The morning has arrived with a whisper, not a shout. It's light, gentle, pale as linen. The sea lies still beneath it, breathing softly in long, even waves. The rain has drifted away, leaving the world washed clean and glistening. The air holds the scent of salt stone and faint warmth from the first touch of sunlight. Rowan sits by the window, his chair angled toward the horizon. The wool blanket rests over his knees once more, and Bristle has curled up beside him, her fur rising and falling in slow rhythm with his breath. The kettle hums faintly on the stove, its soft rumble blending with the sighs of the tide. He takes a sip of tea, light floral, a hint of honey, and lets the warmth fill him. It seems to reach every quiet corner within, melting the last traces of night's chill. The world feels weightless, suspended between sleep and waking. Outside, the sea glitters in a way only it can after rain. Every ripple touched by light, every shadow softened. The lighthouse's great lamp now rests still and silent in the daylight, its glass faintly fogged with the breath of the storm that has passed. The tower, too, seems to exhale, as though relieved after its long vigil through the night. Rowan looks out at the vast expanse, the colors of morning deepening blue into silver, into gold. He thinks of how each day begins the same way, and yet each one feels new. There's no rush in it, no demand, just the simple rhythm of things finding their balance again. He closes his eyes for a moment and listens the slow lap of the tide, the hum of the kettle, the steady pulse of his own heart. Each sound blends into a single melody, the music of a world at peace. The rain may have gone, but its echo remains a memory of calm, an invisible thread, still connecting sky and sea. He sets down his cup and reaches for his journal once more, though he doesn't open it. His hand simply rests on its cover. It feels enough just to feel it there, a small token of a quiet life filled not with grand stories, but with moments that move like waves, gentle, returning, endless. A faint beam of sunlight finds its way through the window, landing on the pages of the closed book. Dust motes dance lazily in the light, tiny constellations, spinning in slow motion. Rowan smiles at the sight, the kind of smile that carries no reason other than contentment. He whispers, voice soft and low, all things come home to stillness. Bristle stirs slightly at the sound, blinking drowsily, before settling back into her curl. The lighthouse hums faintly, a sound felt more than heard, like the memory of the night still alive in its wooden bones. Rowan leans back in his chair, his head resting lightly against the cushion, his body growing heavy with peace. The world outside continues its quiet rhythm, gulls beginning to call softly in the distance, waves touching the shorelight stretching across the stones. Yet inside the tower, time slows once more, the kind of slowing that welcomes rest, the kind that asks nothing more than to be. Rowan's eyes drift half closed. The edges of his thoughts begin to blur, melting into warmth and silence. The sounds around him, the breath of the cat, the sigh of the wind, the whisper of the waves, fold together into something like music, something like sleep. He imagines the sea at its calmest, vast,